Welcome to another edition of Preps Plus Extra. How you doing? I'm Mark Stewart, and yes, I voted today. It's election day. This is J.R. Radcliffe, sports director of Now Newspapers. Did you take care of your voting?
I voted today too, but I gave my sticker to my son, who promptly stuck it on the wall at the polling place. So I'm minus a sticker. I did cast my vote, though. I did my civic duty, and now we can move on to talking about football.
Yeah. But actually, before we talk about football, there was some huge news earlier this week from the WIAA, the competitive balance committee that's been working all summer to come up with a plan for, to kind of help the competitive balance for sports in the state, kind of, showed a little more of the direction they're headed, and it looks like we're headed toward at least some kind of vote, or the proposal they come up with is a success-based plan where, in essence, teams that win state championships or get to state or advance to even the quarterfinals build up point totals over a 3-year period. If you have 7 points or more over that 3-year period, then your school, in essence, gets bumped up a division. A lot of other particulars, about that you can check on JS Online to read more about. But but I guess your initial thoughts when you saw the proposal.
Yeah, my initial thoughts are that I think it's a simple solution. I mean, you read it and there are a lot of layers to it, so it's not simple in that sense. But it's a pretty easy way to go about it. You simply create a point system. Regardless of why or how, if your program is successful over a 3-year window, it's going to move up a division. It's going to have to play a tougher division next time around, and that makes sense to me. And I think, to me, that is at the heart of what schools who have felt like there is a competitive imbalance. It strikes to the heart of that. It addresses the schools that are just simply good, regardless of reason, and compels them to test themselves a little bit better. I can respect a few things that are a little shaky about it. I mean, I do think Dominican basketball, to me, has always been the driving force behind this in the minds of a lot of people. And I think when the Competitive Balance Committee is sitting down, they're thinking, well, what ways do we get Dominican basketball to bump up a division? And I say Dominican, I mean Aquinas basketball and Racine St. Catherine basketball, the small D3 schools that have traditionally held onto the gold ball and made it more difficult for smaller schools in other parts of the state to compete at that level. So I'm always kind of keeping an eye on that. Okay, is this purely for basketball? It's not in football right now. I do think they're going to have to attack that as well, because there are football dynasties like there are in any other sport, and especially at smaller school levels. You get the Edgars, the Darlingtons. I mean, Darlington hasn't necessarily had the string of state championships, but a lot of those schools have. St. Mary's Springs, Waunakee in Division II. I mean, why don't those schools have to also sort of face the music and bump up? So that's another thing that will be addressed, I think, down the road.
Yeah. The more I think about this proposal, the more I guess I don't necessarily like it, or I guess the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking I was hoping maybe that we could get more out of this, because as you noted, I mean, this only addresses certain sports. It addresses only those team sports where there are no individual championships handed out. Boys and girls basketball, boys and girls soccer, baseball, spring baseball rather, softball. There's one other one
Did you say volleyball?
Girls volleyball. So I mean, those are the sports that it addresses, but there are other competitive inequities that, what about those other sports? The other thing that, that I don't necessarily like about, dealing with it from a success-based perspective is that, just because you were good, the previous 3 years doesn't mean that fourth team merits, the team that would be bumped up would merit, playing up a division. Maybe everyone's graduated, and now all of a sudden you really need to go back to division, to the division where they, where they belong. So I guess I was hoping, and I'm still hopeful, because this isn't gone through, this isn't finalized, and who knows, maybe someone, after they get some feedback on this, they'll say, hey, we really need to take more time with this, because I think that's the first problem, is that I think this can't come together too quickly. When years ago, when the WIA and the WISA, the private school organization, merged, they talked about this stuff for 2-3 years. We're talking about only a few months, really, that they've been kind of trying to hash this out. But I mean, I guess I think when you're talking competitive balance, you really got to start looking at what to me gets to the heart of the problem is, okay, where are these kids, your students coming from? I mean, I think that was part of the concern, last spring when the Six Rivers made their multiplier proposal, where they're bumping all the private schools up. I mean, I think that was their concern is, okay, that, some of these schools, even though they might be the same size, have an advantage because they are, they're able to draw students from a larger area. So I think that's, you got to look at that. I mean, I think, financial, I mean, if we're going to get into it, I mean, I think the finances, what kind of income your families in your district have, I think that goes a long way and really helps in terms of what kind of programs you get. So I guess I was hoping that we would see more
Sure.
from that standpoint. I think that would get to the heart of the problem, and that could be something you could apply to all sports, and then you could kind of come up with some
Right.
I guess some sliding scale where okay, you got this number of kids from outside your district, and this is kind of the income you're dealing with, and come up with some kind of point measure where you say, okay, this you merge those two together. This is the number you get, and you kind of maybe multiply
Sure.
that to your enrollment. Now that's kind of complicated.
Yeah, and I think that's the drawback. It takes
Yeah.
a long time to even explain it, let alone try to deduce how much do you value the economics around your
Yeah.
district, how much do you factor in kids who transfer into your district, how much do you factor in success. There's so many different factors. I don't know if you can come up with a formula. No matter what the formula, you're going to have people who are unhappy with how much certain things are weighted versus other things. So I do think ultimately they do have to sort of default to a simpler solution, even though I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Come up with a formula to say, okay, is this school district advantaged or disadvantaged, and then address
Yeah.
accordingly.
But I guess I would say if we're gonna go if it's just gonna be a success based proposal, I would just say, hey, just keep it the way it is. I mean,
Sure.
because it's not the number of schools that it's going to affect really isn't. I guess it's not. It'll affect some schools, but it's not going to affect a ton of them. Even if you get Dominican, who's going to be bumped up, you still got to deal with Racine St. Catherine's. In this proposal, Racine St. Catherine's has no points. I don't think.
Sure, because they keep running into Dominican in the section.
Right. So so you could come into a situation. Okay, well, you don't have school A that's been winning all the time, but now you got to deal with school B.
Yes.
That is really benefiting from the the same issues that
Right.
cause this controversy or cause this problem to be brought up to begin with. So it's like I say, it's really complicated, and it's to try to sum it up here in a few minutes is probably
Yeah. A little tough.
yeah, very very challenging here. But moving on, we do still have high school football going on. This week we're in level 3 of the football playoffs. Some the matchups, they're all huge now.
Right.
Arrowhead, 2-time defending state champion of Division I, gets another shot at McGuanago. You got Marquette going up against Franklin. Those teams are pretty familiar with each other just because they seem to end up playing each other either in non-conference or in playoffs the last few years. My personal favorite, Greendale and Waukesha West this week. Wow, Wisconsin Lutheran, Catholic Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
This week, what pops out to you on the schedule?
Arrowhead McGuanago is an ages-old rivalry, and to come up in level 3 is sort of a big deal. They've only met in the playoffs twice before. McGuanago just upset Muskego. Muskego had beaten them 38-6 in the regular season. McGuanago comes out, wins 22-7. They had him shut out at halftime, shut down I think you could say the best offense in the state if you wanted, with Muskego, and McGuanago beat Arrowhead the first time through. So that's a very intriguing matchup. Arrowhead's Johnny Duranzo will be back at quarterback. He missed the second half of that game against McGuanago, so that'll be definitely a game I'm keeping an eye on. Catholic Memorial, Wisco, like you said, 2 D3 powerhouses. I don't think it's unfair to say the winner of that game is going to be one of the favorites to win the state title, if not the favorite to win the state title. So that's a big one. Came down to a game-winning field goal a couple years ago. CMH won the state title shortly thereafter. So you're right, though. All these matchups are really cool. I mean, I'm interested to see Lake Country Lutheran go to Darlington and try to beat one of the perennial powerhouses in D6. So a lot of fun stuff on the docket.
Right. And speaking of McGuanago, we caught up with Coach Clay Iverson and running back Colton Williams after their big win. Let's see what they had to say.
You come through this league and you come one game away from first. You don't want to get into a situation where you're throwing stuff out that works just because of one football game.
Right.
So we made a few adjustments, but the key is to continue to get better, continue to know your opponent. I think kids and everybody gets nervous when you start making big changes. So I give our kids credit that they kept the faith, even though the first time, frankly, we didn't coach very well, we didn't play very well. But this week was different.
In this game. I mean, Muskego's a great team. They had us in the first game, but we knew the whole time we were going to win this game, and our offensive line just played awesome today, and that big credit to them.
Well, we'll give McGuire to go the final word on this show. But before we head out, congratulations to Coach Bill Young from Catholic Memorial. Got his 300th victory last week over Kewaskum. I believe he's only the 6th coach in state history to accomplish that feat. So kudos to you. But that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Preps Plus Extra. Next week, hopefully we're just talking football only now. This WIA politics stuff, even though it is election day. But that's going to wrap it up for this edition. Till next time, I'm Mark Stewart. That's J.R. Radcliffe. And for more Preps Plus action, be sure to watch me and Lance Allen every Sunday night on TMJ4.